Welcome to Lisa's Book Club. We are on Chapter 3, Part 2 of More Than a Body. And with me is friend of Lisa and friend of the Lisa Show.
Yes.
Like officially and unofficially.
Of course.
Natalie, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I've really been enjoying our conversation about the first part of this chapter because it is like a meaty chapter.
It's a very meaty chapter. I'm very grateful we're doing two parts because it feels impossible to talk about so much in such a little amount of time.
And I wanted to continue kind of where we left off on last episode, and that is, incidentally, this is on 117 for those following at home, but it talked about Dove's marketing videos.
Yes.
And I remember the time. Go back in time with me, if you will. You know, we have these unrealistic body images, and here a company is going to solve the problems for us and show lots of different women that look different heights and weights and skin colors and tones and body shapes and identities. And they're saying all of these women are beautiful. And then the campaign encouraged them to take selfies, right?
Yes.
And to say how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
As a way to sort of take the power back. But how there's a inherent problem in that.
Yeah, I remember.
What did you think about that?
I remember when these videos came out, and I remember kind of seeing it and not thinking a lot, but being like, "Oh, it's cool." But they're like trying to like redefine beauty. And we must have been coming to like rehearsal or something. But I remember talking to Whitney, and she was like, "Did you see the Dove campaign? I am so mad."
Oh, like, it made her mad right away.
She was like, "I don't like this," and I was like, "Why?" And it was such a good like eye-opening thing. She's like, "It's still about that they're beautiful.
Yeah,
that they're like." It
Take
should
a
just be
selfie
that
to say that you're beautiful. And it's like, that's
should just
still our
be
identity?
That they exist. They just are. And that's all. Like, it doesn't have to be like, even this is bravely beautiful. It's like, no, she's a human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She has value.
And I think this is where it can feel sometimes gray because, like, I feel like the intention is so good. Like, whoever came up with that marketing, I'm sure it was a man, but that guy, whoever came up with that marketing campaign was like, we just wanted, like, you know, show that beauty can look different on everyone. And like,
which is a good idea.
Totally. Like, totally behind that. But when you're saying, and beauty holds this much weight for a woman, and then her personality and her brain and her career, like, and the things that she's interested in are all the way down here. You know what I mean? When you uphold the beauty is so important, then it gets a little tricky.
And especially for women. And I feel like it further puts this undue pressure on women, again, to look beautiful. We don't say men have to look so handsome all the time. And there are increasing damaging beauty standards for men. Of course there are. But where are the campaigns, all men are beautiful? They don't exist.
There's a part in the chapter where they talk about how, like, little girls are taught about how they look, and then little boys are taught about, like, what they can achieve. So, like, when you're a little girl, someday when you grow up, you're going to be beautiful. And then the little boys, someday when you grow up, you could be a CEO of something. You know, like, it's just from such an early age, the focus can be so different based on gender, which makes me really sad.
It does. And this idea of beauty work, and not what you think it is, but, but working on being able to love and accept yourself and what, you know, that your body can do and how it serves you, and living in that flow, it has to go beyond that self-objectification, or what they call like the selfie objectification, right? Which of like how you present yourself to the world.
Yes.
And this is like a new thing. This was not a thing when I was
It's a new
younger
thing, and I really liked how they broke down, like, your mental gymnastics of posting a selfie.
Oh, yeah, talk about that.
It's because it's like step one, capture the selfie, and you got to take a bunch of ones, and, you know, all these different things. And then you go through and you delete the one, you're like, oh my gosh, that one's terrible, or this one looks okay. And then even some editing or filtering on that. And then you post it, which is like a little dopamine rush. And then you sit and you wait, and you see how many likes it gets, you see how many comments it gets, you see what people are saying. And it can be such like a toxic cycle. And I really liked how they broke it down. And it reminded me, I feel like several years ago, I would do that cycle. And, you know, being kind of online, having a little bit of a presence online where likes and followers and numbers can matter. It's like, it's really not my jam, but it's also like, it's kind of part of my job and part of marketing the things I'm working on.
Right.
So
you want
I can't fully let go, but I feel like I found a really healthy, like, I delete Instagram 2 days a week, like 48 hours in a row. I just don't have it on my phone. And then 5 days a week, I'm like, it's on for work. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I've tried
That's
to,
really interesting.
I've tried to make like some really healthy boundaries there. I learned very early on with Studio C that after we posted a video, I should not read comments because the good ones like inflate your ego and the bad ones just destroy your day. And either way, it's not serving very well, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I just learned pretty early on to try not to read. And then anytime, like if I post anything for my own stuff, I'll post it, I'll comment, I'll back for a few minutes, and then I take the app off. And just like, I just kind of take that dangling carrot away from me, if that makes sense. That like dopamine rush.
What does that do for you? Like, does it help? Because you know you're going back.
It does. I feel like when you take it kind of out of the moment of like, oh, I should delete it. It didn't get much of a response. It's like, well, no, why? Like, if you wanted to put it out into the world, it's out, it's there. Yeah. Move on with your day. I think it's kind of like what you were saying in the first part of like, I really like getting ready. I like the expression of fashion and makeup and hair. So I give myself that time that I love to express myself, and then I don't really think about it anymore.
Yeah,
you know
I think
what I
that's
mean?
healthy.
I think that's an interesting way to do it, but. I do also remember there was a time whenever I'd post any stories, I had a filter that I just liked, and I had a realization. It wasn't like a big moment. I just thought, I think there's a lot of like young girls that follow me. And I should probably be pretty clear that my skin doesn't glow like this. And so I think starting in 2019, 2020, I just have like a hard and fast rule, no filters on my story. Yeah. And sometimes it means like I'm posting videos of myself talking and I don't love the bags under my eyes, or you're like, I don't love, but it made me think like if my daughters were like, following somebody they admired but didn't know online and saw her skin glowing all the time, and they wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and their skin isn't glowing because of course it's not. Of course, you know what I mean? Because you're a human being and nobody's skin is glowing.
And not a cartoon character.
Yes. Yeah. So like I think we're learning more and more how damaging that can really be. Yeah. And I think we'll learn more of it. Like I heard that there's like a plastic surgery trend on a certain TikTok filter for like a nose job.
Oh, I've heard that
things
too.
like that, where it's just like, I think that's how this is going, because you see it so often with social media. It's just in your face all the time. Like,
it normalizes
look at these perfect curated people, but you don't remember that it's curated. And then you see yourself not curated, of course.
Because the technology is so good.
It's so good.
We're so smart, and it's killing us.
I know. I just think it's something. I love that they listed out the steps of like this is what you do when you take a selfie, and how you can look at each step and the like ridiculousness of it, but also try to catch yourself in that next time.
Right.
You know
and
what I mean?
then I like how they kept the thread going and saying, what you're doing is just comparing yourself to other people. Like you think you're just putting your best face forward, but you really are doing it in comparison. It's not in a vacuum. And that comparison comes from shame and your own insecurities.
Yes.
How about that for some truth?
How about that? Like
that made me feel uncomfortable.
I can't imagine as a teenager growing up with Instagram where there's numbers and like there's hard data to compare.
Yes.
Not even just like, oh, she looks cute and I don't. It's like, oh, she has X amount of, whatever.
Right.
That's wild. And think about how much like, even as a, 30-year-old something, I'm processing shame and intention all the time. But as a teenager, you're trying to take on so much.
And you don't have a life
shame.
Experience that like we have of being like, well, what are you going to do?
Right.
Well, when things don't go your way.
Totally.
So many times and you survived.
Right.
When you're a teenager, you don't have as much life experience, know. And I'm a mother of lots of teenagers, and I, in my church, lead a group of young women.
Right.
So I think about this all the time. And it was funny because I was thinking it as we were reading it, and then I loved this part about be more you.
Yes.
And they said, in fact, I highlighted it and put a star by it. So I know it's important. It was, how do you redefine your identity beyond your appearance? Who are you? How did you get to where you are today? What do you want for your future?
These are all very hard questions.
No, I
Make me
know,
feel
but
uncomfortable.
like these are the things that I want to say to my young women that I work with in my church. What I want to say to my daughters and my sons. You know, what are your strengths, skills, values, goals, purposes, passions, missions, motivating forces? And I just thought it's so interesting because they say sometimes we just hold back a little bit. We hold back and because of our appearance, and don't do that and lean in. And it reminded me of the flow conversation that we had. Like when you're in it and you're just creating and doing, you don't worry about that as much. So that's how you combat it.
Right.
But you have to go like right back to who are you?
Well, and then as you were reading all those questions, I just had the thought in my head like, oh, imagine if like Natalie in her teens and 20s spent as much energy thinking about those questions as my appearance. Like how much more I would know the answers to those questions. You know what I mean? Not that I don't necessarily now. And I think there's probably those questions can be asked throughout your whole life.
Yeah.
But like, oh, imagine how more secure you could feel in just life.
Isn't that crazy?
If you spent more energy on that than like, well, what should I wear? And what am I going to look like?
And it's so counter, and what they're saying in this chapter is so counter to what we're being told, which is like, well, you can exercise more or eat less, or you know what, you buy this product and look at this calendar and do this and and do more, and buy this and then do this skincare regimen and this anti-aging and this body and then these pants will make you look and it's this hyper focused, frantic consumerism when the antidote for self-objectifying is self-reflection.
I know. It's like, it's quiet and like, calm. You're totally
it's quiet
right.
and calm. And I think that we're so not used to that in our society, and it's not praised enough of just, what do you want?
Well, and like they say too, like, if the seer, the outside person looking at me is what I'm concerned about, then the solution is outside too.
Right. Ooh, that's a good point.
It's never going to be. So like you said, like the solution to self-objectification is self-reflection. Is saying like, I wonder why. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen a picture and my eyes go right to my hips of like how wide I'm looking. Yep. Oh, I'm such a pear. I should have, why did I eat that? Why did, you go to shame.
Yeah,
you go to shame. And then they also talk about in this chapter how there's kind of two ways often it happens. It's like shame or fix. And I feel like I've definitely had my moments of shame, but man, am I a fixer? Like I was even saying before, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll go on a cleanse for like the month before shooting starts and I'll lose that 10 pounds and then I'm going to nail it. It's like, guess what? I could have nailed it if I didn't lose the 10 pounds. You know what I mean? Like that 10 pounds isn't going to make that big of a difference. But in my mind, it's like—
in your mind, it will make all the difference.
I'm not worthy to do this until I'm a certain size or I'm a certain— especially having kids on that show.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, well, I'm a different size than I was last season and I'm sorry. And you're like all this like, oh, shame about your body and crazy. It's crazy.
It's such a gift. And you know that and you believe that, but it's not like what is validated.
Right. Totally. No, you're totally right. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Well, no, don't apologize for getting emotional. This is what's so interesting to me about this book is it got me to think about lots of different phases of my life.
Yeah, and just
someone I've done this well and someone I have really failed.
Totally. Well, and just like you just don't even realize what's happening until you kind of self-reflect and you kind of touch base of like, man, why are you paying more attention to how you look in that picture than the fact that you're with your family on a vacation and you're having so much fun? Right? Like, why do you care so much about how you look? Try to be more present. All that kind of stuff that we know from a mental health perspective is so much better for you.
So much better.
It's so much healthier and you're going to live a better life that way.
And having that sort of confidence. I was reading this and I was thinking, I thought I was better at this than I really was.
Yes. I thought that too.
I was like, I don't care.
It's like, I'm a carefree person.
Yeah, I've had these kids and I've been through a lot in my life and I know better. And I was reading through like the list, like where do I draw the line? What's the best version of myself? The beauty routines and all that stuff. And then I was just like,
I feel called out.
I felt like uncomfortable and a little defensive.
Sure.
For sure. But then I took a little bit of moment of reflection too, and I thought, what could I gain if I changed? And some of the habits that I have or the false beliefs, the insecurities, like I want to hold on to because I'm afraid if I let them go that more will follow. Like I'll lose something. And I thought that was weird. A weird feeling for me and uncomfortable.
It is an uncomfortable feeling because, I mean, there's so much, I feel like women's bodies are so tied to control.
100%. And if you struggle with perfectionism, like I have in,
yes,
I thought I was doing so great.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, I just want to say you are doing great. Like sometimes your best is, going to be 30%,
That is
not 100%.
true. But it just made me aware of things that I thought, okay, it's time to check in again.
Right.
And then I got mad about why is this so pervasive?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Like why?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel really called out. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I think it's so good. I've never really had, this is the type A heart in me. I liked when they talked about self-reflection.
Yeah.
How they were like, here's some questions to.
Yes.
I was like, thank you. I just want actual tangible tools.
Yeah. Like,
instead
what
of
are
just
your
like,
goals and
just
let's
touch
just lay it out.
touch base mentally and make sure you're doing okay.
Are
It's
you
like,
okay?
Well, that doesn't help me.
And I really liked this part on 143. We can change and grow and react differently because we respect and care for ourselves, not because we hate who we are and we're trying to punish ourselves.
Right.
And I thought, it needs to come from a place of caring. And then you can, not be so, hard on yourself if you have bad habits or, you feel like your appearance is holding too much weight.
Right. And one thing I love about this book in general, but especially in this chapter, is I feel like so much body image stuff I've heard before reading this book has been like, what they describe as the self-objectification ocean. Mm-hmm. I feel like most people are like, just ignore the ocean.
Right.
And this book is like, hey, you're drowning in the ocean. We're all going to be in the ocean. Let's talk about how to survive the ocean. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a great metaphor.
Instead of like, we just shouldn't care.
Yeah, just
to like simplify it. You know what I mean? I really like this quote. It says, and this kind of acknowledges how like it's okay to feel pain and have setbacks and have kind of waves of disruption of our body image. Speak kindly to yourself, acknowledge the reality of the pain you feel and the unfairness of objectification, and validate your past and present responses to that pain. This is like, so you can say to yourself, this is hard. I don't like feeling this way.
Yeah.
Why am I experiencing this? And kind of talk through yourself. And I love that tool of like, don't push it away.
I love that
This
too.
feeling of uncomfortableness or pain or like kind of sadness on your past self, like don't push it under the rug. Use it.
Yeah.
Because this is how you get over it. And I love how they give us that tool.
And then they give us like so many great examples too about how people will take their own approach to it based on what they struggle with or they don't anymore.
Right.
Like Lizzo, who said, I thought
Lizzo's in this book. Of course she is.
She said, I don't think that loving yourself is a choice. I think that it's a decision that has to be made for survival.
Yeah.
It was for my case. Yeah, and loving myself was the result of answering two things. Do you want to live? And then she goes on to talk a little bit about self-care and how it has to be rooted in honesty as the second thing. And I just thought, she goes on to talk about how she was able to do that. And some people need therapy and some people need to go off social media. Like everybody needs something a little bit different. And then that sort of self-reflection connected to self-compassion, I think made me feel like, this is just part of life.
Yes.
It does make us more resilient.
Yeah.
It does make us, I was talking to one of my friends and she had really struggled with self-image for a really long time. And so I was asking her about it. And then I said, well, what's the difference now? Because you probably still trip
moments.
up because you're human like the rest of us and you live in this world like the rest of us. And she says, I just bounce back much faster now. I still have those days where I'm like, ugh, this is a struggle, a body image day. I'm having a hard time, but I just don't waste a lot of time on it. I'm able to get out of it quicker. And I thought, that's a realistic goal.
I think that's a really realistic goal. And how encouraging that it's getting quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
That someday it could be moments. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that is the goal. I really love how she said, well, do you want to live or like live a half life being ashamed of yourself? Like when you put it that simply, It's like, of course, I'm here to live a life. I want to live a good life.
And then when you just know her in context and all the joy she brings people to, you're like,
I know.
How could you ever question that?
How could you ever?
And I'm sure that other people say that about all of us,
yes,
right? Like,
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right. But I love how simple that can be. Of
I
like,
do
well,
too.
do you just want to live your life? Like, think of all of life you'd miss out on if you're, kind of always preoccupied with how you're looking.
And I mean, what a powerful chapter, this chapter 3. And I want to end with how the chapter ends because I do feel like it's so hopeful. I know that we both were like,
It's
like
so,
reading
it's
it like,
much, but it's
this
so
is a
good.
lot
It's
for
so
me to
good.
think about it. But I love how they talk about like, how to live your life, like get involved in community, right?
I really
and
like it talks
activism
about
and
like
helping.
spirituality too.
Yes, and
like knowing your
spirituality.
divine worth and connecting to a divine. I love it.
And your life is bigger than what you look like, and finding purpose is key to stepping outside the constraints of
I also underlined that
self-objectification.
sentence.
Didn't you? Start it. I love it. We both did. That's so great. Your life is bigger, and that will snap me out of it.
Yeah.
To think, oh yeah, no, I want to do good things and important things.
I feel like just focusing more on like a bigger life and just more a grateful life too. Like I have 2 legs that can walk. Do you know how lucky I am?
Oh my gosh, so lucky.
You know what I mean? Like, why should I waste time worrying about how tight my pants fit today? You know what I
Get new
mean?
Pants. It's a pants problem.
That is the pants problem.
it is.
I agree.
We can buy new pants.
I totally agree.
I love it. We're more than a body. Chapter 3. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks for having me.
Join us next week as we dive into chapter 4 of More Than a Body and continue our discussion on body image.